Graham Matthews, Bleacher Report, fan-sided daily DDT. My man, how you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Randy Cruz. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. We're taping this live Friday, November 22nd, just about a week away from the Survivor Series. You can find Graham Matthews on Twitter, X at WrestleRant. Find myself, Randy J. Cruz, RENDY, the letter J C R U Z. Find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show some love and support for your boys on the program. Go to youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. So if you're watching this live on X or YouTube, got any questions or comments regarding the upcoming Survivor Series or Survivor Series greatest moments or matches, hit us up in the chat. We'll get right to it on the show. So, Graham, it's been like 2 weeks since we did a show, or at least I had you on a show, because you're a very busy guy during Survivor Series time. We got 3 matches on the card. We got the 2 War Games matches, men and women, and we had the World Heavyweight Championship match between Gunther and Damian Priest. So I want to get to you regarding the men's War Games match because it's supposed to be 5-on-5. As of today, it's 5-on-4 because Solo and them have Bronson Reed on their side, and Roman has Sami Zayn and the Usos, but still trying to figure out a 5th member. So the last couple of days, Seth Rollins has been contacted to try to be a 5th member. They've been doing some recruiting. Everybody except Roman has been doing the recruiting, but right now, no 5th member. Should it be Seth Rollins? Do you agree that Seth Rollins is even in the mix to be a 5th member? And if it's not Seth, because you have Bronson Reed on the opposite side, who should be the 5th member be for the OG bloodline?
I think it will be Seth. I don't think it should be Seth, though. I still don't really see it making sense. I know it's wrestling, so the fact that he said on Raw 2 weeks in a row, I'll never do this, Roman Reigns is a tyrant, and then he's just going to go back on this coming Monday Raw, this coming Monday's Raw for the Go Home show, and say that I'll team with you just to get my hands on Bronson Reed, who beat him last week on Raw. I know that's the direction they're going in. Yeah. I think it would honestly be more refreshing if Rollins stuck to his, gut, to his guns and said, no, I'm not teaming with Roman Reigns. There really hasn't been a moment where he would even want to forgive Roman Reigns. It's not even like Roman Reigns fucking, apologized. He hasn't apologized to anyone since he returned to WWE. He hasn't apologized to Jey Uso. He hasn't apologized to Sami Zayn. But all these people are teaming with him anyway, just because. Family, nostalgia, whatever. Rollins should be smarter than that, especially if he's so adamant about teaming with Roman Reigns again and kind of, burying the hatchet sort of thing. At some point, yes, at this current point in time, it would just feel rushed. That doesn't mean they won't do it. They definitely will do it. Again, they put Bronson Reed on the other team for a reason. What I would rather see, which I feel like, well, first of all, just for starters, the 5-on-5 thing is just fucking stupid. There's no reason for this match. The women's match shouldn't even happen. The women's match is completely pointless for the War Games stipulation.
Yeah.
I think the women's match, before I go any further, just on a quick side note, that would work better as an elimination tag team match. You know what Survivor Series was kind of built on and known for?
Yeah.
That would work better as that sort of match. There have been many Survivor Series where they took a lot of intertwining feuds or people that had nothing to do with each other, but they were feuding with someone else on the other team. We saw that in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s even. Why not do that with the women? We don't need 2 War Games matches on the same show. We don't even need War Games at Survivor Series in general. Just bring it back when it's necessary. But nonetheless, for the men, 4-on-4 would have worked. It should be all about the bloodline. Not that, I love Bronson Reed. I think he's making the most of this push. It's great to see him in that spot. There is no reason for this match to be anything other than about the bloodline, the bloodline civil war. Bronson Reed isn't a part of that. He has nothing to do with any of these people. He's only on the team because, I guess the bloodline needed a 5th guy. They recruited him and he said, yes, I don't know. It's a great spot for him to be in, to shine, but he shouldn't be a part of it. Because he is a part of it, though, what I would rather see instead, I know CM Punk also has nothing to do with any of this, but I could see him being the 5th man on Team Roman. He doesn't even like Roman. Like in real life, we know that he's talked shit about him and vice versa. Roman specifically has talked shit about Punk. I don't think they like each other, but he might say yes just because Rollins said no. Despite Seth he might join the team. I could totally see that. And again, he has nothing against Solo. He really has no history with the bloodline at all since returning to WWE. The only thing he really has a connection with is Paul Heyman, and we haven't even seen Paul Heyman return to TV yet. So
Yeah.
it would be kind of a quick turnaround for Heyman to come back and say, "Hey, I'll do Roman a favor by linking up Punk, who I have history with myself."
Yeah.
That would make sense. It's not going to be The Rock. It will be Seth Rollins. But yeah, that's where I see it going. It will be Seth Rollins, but I would prefer it to be someone else. Not almost anyone else, but like I think the Punk thing, although he's equally random, at least for him, he could do it to kind of trigger and jumpstart, rekindle the rivalry between him and Seth as we head on into WrestleMania. That's what I would like to see personally.
Do you think that the WWE is going to paint or is going to or have already painted themselves into a corner where, we've been on the show for years talking about, Hell in a Cell should just be a match, not a pay-per-view, or Money in the Bank should be a match, not a PLE. But now it feels like the War Games stipulation for Survivor Series the last couple of years, like it's cool, but now you're gonna feel forced to have a War Games match of men and women every single year when the story doesn't add up to being a War Games match. Do you feel they're on that path to like, damn, every Survivor Series there's gonna be at least one or two War Games match when it doesn't need to be in that cage?
You're completely correct. And I think that's something that they can go back on because it's not called War Games. The show is called Survivor Series War Games, but you can just change the name back to Survivor Series. It doesn't have to be Survivor Series War Games. I am of the mindset, and it was awesome. Like, we didn't really talk about it 2 years ago because it was cool they were even doing War Games on the main roster to begin with because they've never done it before. It was an NXT thing. It was clearly just a Triple H idea to bring it back to WWE, but Vince he wanted nothing to do with it, blah, blah, blah. Then last year, I'm kind of like, okay, still cool, but a little bit more like we don't really need this. And this year, even more so, it's like, all right, the Bloodline Civil War match being in War Games makes perfect sense. The 5-on-5 thing, it doesn't have to be fucking 5-on-5. There were plenty of War Games matches, even in NXT, that were 4-on-4. I don't know why we have to adhere to a certain rule where it has to be 5-on-5, unless it's just to get certain people on the card. They could have done Rollins and Bronson Reed too on that show. Reed and Rollins do not have to be in that match. They could just change it back, and I hope they do because it will absolutely go the way. Not that it could or would, it will go the way of Hell in a Cell, and feeling like we're just doing this just to do it. And even with Hell in a Cell, did not have two. I mean, they did have multiple Hell in a Cell matches each event. Sometimes there was one, sometimes there were three. Usually there were two. But even Hell in a Cell, after they started doing the women's cell match, they did their first ever one with Charlotte and Sasha. I was there for that one in Boston back in 2016. They did not do a women's cell match every year. They did do two cell matches most years, but it wasn't like one men's, one women's. Sometimes it would be two men's. For the War Games, you're not going to do two men's War Games, but I'm just saying, like, we don't need a women's War Games match just because of just for the simple sake of having a women's War Games match, just for gender equality. I get that with Elimination Chamber. I get that with Royal Rumble, with Money in the Bank. That's totally fine. They should be doing that. With the depth of the women's division now that they have compared to 10 years ago, they should be doing that shit. But for War Games, it's like, it's not like the Rumble or Money in the Bank where there's stakes, so the women should have those same opportunities. You can do women's War Games matches, but it's got to make sense. This year makes absolutely no fucking sense at all. And the men's one is just even sillier. So I'm the same mindset. I think it's stupid that they have attached themselves to doing it on this show. It's because they want to give it more buzz and like make it more exciting. They want to bring some excitement back to Survivor Series. I get it. But at the same time, I feel like you could do that by just creating simple stories. I mean, they didn't have War Games for how many fucking years at Survivor Series? The brand supremacy shit was also dumb. But like, I mean, you grew up a fan of Survivor Series and WWE for decades. The Montreal Screwjob notwithstanding, but a lot of elimination matches and other shit that they did at that pay-per-view that had a lot of great storytelling. You can bring that back and just make it a special show for that alone without doing War Games or brand supremacy.
Yeah, I agree. It don't need to be 5-on-5, men or women. I'm perfectly fine with it being 4-on-4 because that's the whole tradition of a Survivor Series. I know it's War Games because even me just checking right now, like even back in like Fall Brawl when they had it, it was 4-on-4. Like I don't know where it had to be 5-on-5. I know 2022 was 5-on-5 with Sammy, The
It's
Usos,
it's
Roman
been
and
5-on-5
Solo.
on the main roster, yeah.
Right, but
It
again, just
doesn't have
because
to be.
it, this year, I think it does not have to be because now it's like, all right, so you got Bronson Reed on one side, cool, great. Maybe Bronson and Seth should have been a singles match at Survivor Series with like a major stipulation, but to be included in this, like if you're gonna go 5-on-5, you gotta have the right people in it. Like to make sense. Like if you added Cody and The Rock, all right, then I'm fine. I'm fair game because it adds to the story because they already have their DNA in this storyline for quite some time.
Mhm.
Bronson Reed is like, okay, you have nothing to do with this whole shit at all. And Seth Rollins, yeah, Seth, you was in the main event in night one against Rock and Roman, but that's your only story to this. Your main story is the origin of you and Roman when now you want to play victim and say Roman's a tyrant, I can't trust him, but you're the one that turned on him 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it goes both
So,
ways, yeah.
right. So, like, now if they're going to explain that, like Roman is saying, hey, the reason why I'm the way I am today because of you. I can't trust you. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So it's
Then
like,
why would Roman even want him on the team? That's what I'm like. All of what you're saying is amazing. They should have this on television, and I think it's they're rushing into this. Like, there's no time to tell this story that you're telling right now because I think it's fantastic.
that that's why they should hire me and you.
It's just like they have one show left. They don't even have enough time to tell the story of what we're talking about right now. They could, and they should, and they will post Survivor Series if they don't put fucking Seth on the team. They can do everything that we're talking about right now as a fucking 3-month long build heading into a
Mhm.
Mania or a last one-on-one match where they hug afterward or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the Ambrose thing, I know we're going back years here, but like when
Right.
Ambrose and Rollins first kind of reunited as partners, I think back in 2017, it was like a couple, at least a month-long thing where they were willing to get back on the same. This was the first time they had kind of joined forces since Rollins turned on Ambrose. Rollins was a babyface by this point, but Ambrose still had issues trusting Rollins because of that.
Yeah.
And they never really kind of fully buried that hatchet until they did. And they kind of, Rollins had his issues with Ambrose and vice versa. And they finally put that behind them. That's not the focus of this pay per view. The focus is the bloodline. That's a whole separate story that you're rushing and wasting by putting Rollins on Team Roman for this pay per view. Hold
Yeah.
that. Like they gave us like 7 big moments in the span of like fucking 6 weeks. And it makes for good television. But like Sami Zayn coming back with Roman, they blew that off in maybe like 9 days. Like that's fucking wild. Like, and again, Roman is yet to apologize for anything that he has ever done. So it's
Mhm.
like I don't even really know why Sammy would want to join him anyway. So I hate the rushing. And again, it goes back to your point from a moment ago. If they didn't attach war games to this show, they wouldn't feel like they need to rush this story because they could spend more time telling the story over the course of 6 months and not fucking 6 weeks.
So sidebar, I know everybody praises Triple H in this era of storylines and running everything. Do you think this is an L, what we call it, an L on Triple H's column where like, all right, you bringing the whole reincarnation of the bloodline, the OG happened too quick. Everybody just saying, "Oh, come back, come back." Sure, no problem. We're buddy.
Mhm.
Even though I fought you 1-on-1 at Mania months ago, we're cool now. I know before the Montreal months ago, but we're cool now. Do you think this is an L on Triple H's side that you just rush this whole thing completely?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to designate it in either a W or an L, I'd put it more in the L category because, like the match itself is strong. It will
Yeah,
be a great
very.
match, and the build has been the build is made for great television. It's just questionable. I think the bigger L to me is the fact that it's been rushed. The entire story is not an L. Like the actual
No.
story and stuff has been great. But
Mhm.
the execution of it has been certainly questionable with how they've kind of rushed things and put things together as quickly as they have. And War Games even being at Survivor Series at all is also kind of an L at this point because it doesn't need to be attached to a certain fucking show. So yeah, I mean, like you said, Tony Khan, Triple H doesn't even matter. And like no booker is perfect. And I've enjoyed a lot of what Triple H has done as head of
Yeah.
creative. I'll take it over Vince McMahon any day of the week. But there are still things that he could be doing better. And this story is a prime example of that.
Mhm. You would take him over Vince any day of the week?
No, I mean, that's
Triple H?
not even close. Vince, modern day, yeah. I mean, if you're talking
Oh,
Vince,
you saying modern day? Okay. We're
well,
talking overall.
I mean, overall, it's debatable. Triple H has only been running the company creatively for 2 years. WWE's main roster,
That's
which is
it. 2
different than
years. That's
NXT.
it.
Yeah, about 2.5 years. And even then, Vince had a say in a lot of stuff up until he was booted earlier this year. Vince ran the company for decades. And Vince, I mean, that's a whole other separate podcast where it's like, where did he finally lose his touch? Where did things kind of go downward? I would say probably after the Attitude Era, but there's still a lot of great stuff in the 2000s. I would say in like the early 2010s, late 2000s, where it was kind of him being stubborn and not really moving on and embracing the future was kind of where Vince lost his touch, so to speak. Because for a while there, I'm sure what we're saying, what a lot of people say about Triple H is what a lot of people were thinking about Vince. Like, oh man, this guy's on a creative high. But then at the same time, he was also booking the fucking early 90s too with some of the dumb shit they were doing back then. So I feel like Triple H has a better consistent record of booking overall than Vince does at certain points. But again, we don't have much of a sample size to go off of for Triple H because he's only been in charge of the main roster for 2.5 years.
So I know we have 2 SmackDowns left, one tonight, one next Friday, and we got Raw. So you got 3 shows left. Is there any chance that it is like official, like Bronson will be the 5th? Like I'm thinking, like can they find a way to get out of it? Like can Seth hurt Bronson and that he's not able to participate? So now we're back to 4-4 because Seth I mean, do I want Seth to be the 5th? I guess I don't mind, but it just. I'm still on 4-4 kind of mind frame, but it's like, how do you get out of it?
You can't. I mean, they had Bronson Reed attack the bloodline last week. As soon as they did that, they locked and loaded in. If it was just the angle on Raw where the bloodline helped Bronson win, and it's like, oh, we want you, we're fucking you over because you turned us down, and then he still says no despite that, you can kind of get away with it. Bronson literally attacked Roman Reigns last week, and then they went on .com or something and said, oh yeah, he's the 5th guy. So they can't get out of it at this point. I mean, it's 5-on-5. I wish they would, but they've kind of set the table with that one and they can't go back on it.
So then I think I was watching NBA at the time, and then I see the social clips of like, they get attacked. Jay says to Roman, make the call. And I guess he, was insinuating make the call to I didn't know, but I think he called Paul Heyman, called a wise man. Phone don't work, wrong number. But before they showed a clip of Sammy taking a phone out and put it on the couch, like, oh, and now it's like, oh, what was that about? What phone is that? Can you trust Sami Zayn? Did Roman call the wrong phone? Did he call the wrong numbers? And now it's like you're adding the story of like, who do you trust? Is everybody on the same page? So are you intrigued by that? Like him trying to call, is Paul Heyman up in the air? Is he OG bloodline? Is he 2.0 bloodline? Is Sami Zayn playing both sides? Like, how do you think this is going to play out?
It was a great cliffhanger. I thought it was really well done. Led to a lot of speculation and fan theories about like, oh, why was his phone off the hook? Was it because Solo destroyed it back in April? I mean, has Heyman been without a phone for 6 months now? That's ridiculous.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
He's been on Instagram a lot.
That's true. I mean, but how is he on Instagram? On his fucking laptop? Not on his phone? Does he not have service? I don't know. These are the questions that we ask. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure where they go with it. I think Heyman will ultimately align and stay with Roman Reigns, but could they put him back with could they put him with the new bloodline? Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, they fucking destroyed him, so I think it would be weird. You would have to come up with a pretty clever explanation what did they didn't stage that. What did he come around to? I mean, maybe you could say, oh, they attacked him, but then Roman didn't check up on Paul, so Paul thinks that Roman doesn't care about him. That makes Roman Reigns look like a fucking asshole, so why would I want to cheer that guy in this feud if that's the case? It would make Solo look like the good guy, actually. But anyway, I don't know where they go with that. I think bringing him into this was great. We haven't seen him since June at the MSG show that we were at where they beat him down. That was a great angle. So yeah, I'm intrigued. We'll find out tonight on SmackDown, I'm sure, or at least more about it as far as where they're going with it.
Well, before I get Jeff on, remember, if you're going by the story, Paul could have an interesting decision to make because, Solo and them attacked him at the Garden. But if you rewind the tape, Roman attacked Paul and fired him first. Remember that?
He did, but then he made up with him. So
I mean, with Paul don't forget. He might forget, but he don't forget.
I guess. I mean, he inducted him into the Hall of Fame, so they were pretty emotional with each other. But I mean, yeah, you could. It would just be weird, but you could.
All right, hold on. Jeff Johnson, good morning, my man. How you doing?
Yo, what's going on, y'all? How you feeling?
I'm doing good, man. We're doing good. Just chiming in, figuring out what's gonna happen at Survivor Series next week. This cliffhanger storyline with the Bloodline is gonna be set as a fifth member. Do we need a fifth member? Is Paul Heyman gonna be on OG Bloodline or 2.0 Bloodline? What do you make of all this?
I think they could have been good with 4. I'm not mad at them expanding to 5, especially when Bronson Reed is the fifth man. That was something that I didn't see coming. Like, it was a good surprise, and it makes sense because he's somebody who is just looking to destroy people, and he will align with whoever he needs to in order to further his agenda. It feels like a political move on Bronson's part, where he gets in with the new bloodline and maybe gets a future opportunity, or eventually, if Solo somehow were to get the title, I'm thinking about it from Bronson's perspective. If one of them gets a title, then he can be in line for an opportunity and realize his dream of being a singles champion. And plus, if there was any chance that the OG bloodline would be affiliated with Seth, then count him in. Count Bronson in to be a part of the violence. And then you have the whole, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, Pacific Islander connection as well, where we, at one point people were saying, yo, where are they going to find more Samoans? How many Samoans? How many Tongans? And then you forget about the Pacific Island Australians and New Zealanders. So it's like, it'll never stop. It's ongoing. So I think this was a cool wrinkle in the bloodline story, because a lot of these factions, when you go through faction history, some of the best have hired hitmen. They have hired guns to work for them, where they may not be affiliated with the group, but there's somebody who you can align with. I remember when Roman was talking with Apollo Cruz backstage when he was the first ascent of the tribal chief. And then months later, Apollo becomes the Nigerian king and goes with that gimmick. So while he wasn't affiliated with the bloodline, he was somebody who was learning from them and was associated with them. So I think those type of stories can work.
So, like, before Graham chimes in, like, if I make this like a hip hop reference, so OG Bloodline 2.0 is like Wu-Tang, and then like Bronson Reed is like Redman.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Friend of the group who should be in the group, but is an unofficial official member.
Exactly. Graham, go ahead, man.
Oh, I'm lost in the reference, so I can't comment on that. But listen, I think, like I said before, I still maintain it should have stayed 4-on-4. But if we're looking at the positives here, everything that Jeff said was correct. And I'm just happy it puts Bronson Reed in a prominent spot. I mean, the guy's fucking great. He's been doing a lot of nothing for the last 2 years. He's in the middle of this great feud right now with Rollins, who we beat on Monday's Raw. As long as to me, I'm okay. I'm willing to get over it with the asterisk of, and the match should still be very good too. I'm willing to get over it with the asterisk of, do not let Bronson Reed take the pinfall loss here. The only reason why he's in this match is to lose for that bloodline team. I mean, you have Tonga Loa in there who could easily take the loss if they're losing that match, assuming they don't win. Bronson Reed should not be losing. That would just be dumb. But I can't put it past them because he's lost a lot of matches since coming back. So we'll see. But I think getting him in there with Roman at the very least should be very exciting. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I think agree with Graham also. Yeah. I think if he does take the pin, Graham, he has to get annihilated by the All Five. Like, it has to be a strong loss. Like he has to get caught with every special, every finishing move, and then and like chairs and all of that. Like, make it seem like he was the unstoppable force that they had to put down. That's the only way if he is going to take that pin.
If he's going to take the loss, yeah. I mean, even that I would still be upset with, but it would be better than just him like taking a curb stomp and losing, or a spear from Roman and that being it. I agree though.
But Jay, is it telling that everybody's trying to, again, now basketball reference, everybody's trying to recruit somebody? So Uso was talking to Seth and Rey Mysterio. Everybody backstage, they're trying to recruit a fifth guy. Roman is in the background like, I don't need nobody. I ain't doing shit. This is like when LeBron was a free agent and Derrick Rose was like, oh, want to come to Chicago? Cool. But I ain't going to. I'm not doing the recruiting. Like, is it telling that Roman isn't doing any recruiting, or do you think he? like to tell the story or to try to get Seth on his side, does it require Roman to be like, damn, I gotta go fucking apologize or walk up to him and say, listen, let's have a conversation? Do you think that could add to the story?
Yeah, I think so. If you think about the psychology of the OTC, he knows, one, he's not the person that goes around asking for help. You come to the tribal chief and you request to be on the team. That's first off. You should want a team with him. He shouldn't have to deign to ask you to join the team. That's first off. Secondly, it takes an extreme circumstance for him to reach out. He wasn't even trying to call Paul Heyman until they got jumped on SmackDown. And Jey Uso was telling them, make the call, Uso, make the call. You got to make the call. And it took that extreme circumstance for him to make the call to Paul Heyman. The other aspect is he knows what he did. He knows the rate of terror he had on all three brands of WWE. He doesn't want to be rejected because that'll make him look weaker if he has to go and ask people. Like me and a bunch of my guys in my wrestling chat, we were making jokes like, what if the fifth member came from NXT? Like, who would he ask? Who's the funniest person that he could ask from NXT? Because at this point, if no one on the main roster, you know, if you think about it psychology-wise, even with the NXT psychology, no matter what those people have going on, someone from NXT, yo, I want the opportunity. Unless it's within their character to say, like, I could see Javon Evans saying, hey, this looks like some family beef. Like, I respect you, Tribal Chief, but nah, I'm not getting in all of that, right? Or Andre Chase, you'd have to put a line on his credit or something like that. Take the lien off of his credit report for him to, you know, to make it worth his while. Or maybe it's I could have seen 2.0 going to get Obafemi, someone like that, someone in line, right? But Roman isn't trying to ask people to join because he knows people don't
tell him no.
So align with him. There's valid reasons why 80% of the current roster would not align with either bloodline. So what would it say if Roman is the one going backstage and you saying no, and these wrestlers are saying no? It makes them look even weaker, and it makes them look weaker going into War Games. So I can see how his character would be smug enough to say, I don't need anybody, because that's who he is. And also he's very cerebral with it. So he knows I can't have people rejecting me, because then it makes a direct claim against me being the one true tribal chief. It weakens my claim.
So, Graham, before you chime in, I know Jeff is a nice betting guy, so he does a lot of over-unders. So, let's say tonight we still don't know who the fifth guy is. Let's say Seth is still on. It's like, I ain't fucking with it. What's the over-under that it is Seth? What's the over-under that, you know, it could be CM Punk as the fifth guy? Because I've been seeing that circulating on social, and Graham mentioned it earlier. Could it be Brock? Like, who could it else be if Seth is like, I'm not fucking with it?
So if I was creating lines, for this, I would put Seth at like minus. I put him at 110, minus 110, right? So he'd still be the favorite. I'd put Punk at like plus 300 and Brock at 10-1.
Damn.
That's how I will put it right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's Brock.
Yeah, like I don't think it's Brock. That's why it's a long shot. Like if you try to put a little sprinkle on it just in case something out of the ordinary happens. And it's like plus 5,000 for the field. I don't think Cody's made it clear that he wants no more parts of the bloodline. And I think for his story, for his continued story, he should not be involved in the bloodline civil war, this version, because he has no claim on it. His only claim was to the world title. He didn't have nothing to do with the bloodline, with the beef, with the history. He wanted to dismantle. He dismantled the bloodline just by winning the title. He was the one who started the fall. It wasn't his goal to dismantle the bloodline. He just said, what's going to happen when I win this title? I'm winning this title for my family. I don't really care what you got going on. Right? Like, and that's what his journey was about. And now with this whole, he really has his own problems. with Kevin Owens,
True.
Randy Orton, with all of that. So he doesn't really need to be a part of it. So I wouldn't even have him on the board.
I think if The Rock was involved, and then Cody would be the fifth guy. I think that's the only way it would make sense.
If Rock was on the other team, you're saying.
If Rock was on the other team, then he would be the favorite.
Yeah.
Then he would be the favorite if Rock was involved.
So the last one, what's the over under of The Rock appearing at Survivor Series?
I mean, I don't know what he's filmed. It depends on what he's filming.
Yeah.
Wait, Survivor Series is in Vancouver?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if he was recording a CW show, I would have said minus 500. Like, he's definitely going to be there because they used to film everything out of Vancouver. right. Like, I don't know if he's still doing press runs or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd say 50-50. To me, it's a toss-up because I don't know what they want to do after War Games. Or maybe he shows up to steal some thunder and record his 30-minute IG live and whatnot and get his bars
cowboy
off.
hat on.
But yeah, right. But it's like, okay, and it's a major, it is one of the big five for WWE. Yeah, I'd say at this point, it's a toss. Hey, last year, if you told me CM Punk was showing up in Survivor Series, I would have been like, hell no. And it happened. So Survivor Series could be the anything can happen in WWE event.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'd put it as a toss-up.
Back-to-back years, I wouldn't put it past me.
Right. I mean, he did debut at Survivor Series back in '96. Did Rock. So I mean, he's got the history there too. He returned at Survivor Series in the ring in 2011. So he's got a lot of Survivor Series history. I don't think he wrestles on the team. I mean, I was told for weeks. So yeah, he'll be the fifth guy in Team Blood. The Rock ain't fucking working War Games, dude. He's not working anything at this point but Mania. I think that's pretty clear.
He looks at that cage and he's going to tear an oblique. He looks at the cage.
Exactly.
The oblique is gone.
Exactly. I don't think he wrestles. Could he appear? Yeah, but like, what are we doing here? The Bad Blood appearance, in retrospect, just honestly hearing us talk about it, has reminded me that cameo at the end of Bad Blood was completely fucking pointless. It didn't go anywhere. They didn't even acknowledge it. They have not even. It's almost like it didn't even happen. So then why? I know he was in the area, so it's like, oh, if he's there, then we might as well use him. It almost makes me mad in retrospect that Cody Roman bloodline match went on last, because that case, the only reason why it went on last was because Rock showed up. But if he didn't need to have him there. He could have done something else. Punk and McIntyre should have gone on last. That was a much better match, but whatever. That's in the past. It depends how imminent this Rock, Cody, Roman thing. We still have no idea what they're going to do. I don't know if they're doing Cody and Rock at Mania. We don't know if they're doing it at the Rumble. We don't know if they're doing a triple threat. That was the talk at one point. I'm not a big fan of that idea. We've talked about that before. Don't have him show up. I know he's filming, I think, Moana right now. I know Moana 2 comes out in a couple of days, but they're filming the live action Moana movie. I saw a picture of him with a stupid suit on. So he might be busy anyway. I don't know if that's in Vancouver or where that, probably in Hawaii or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think he shows up. I don't think he needs to show up. Would I be mad if he did? No, but I'm just asking, like, what's the point? It takes, honestly, like, if Team Roman goes over, it's a big moment for them. And then Rock kind of comes in to overshadow it again. For what reason? Unless we're getting Roman and Rock at Mania, which I still don't think we are, I would not do that. I just feel like that would just be taking the spotlight away from whatever team wins at War Games.
So I'm gonna circle back to Survivor Series in a second, but going back to you, G, is there any fear that, because I'm gonna break down the story to you, come February for the Rumble, it would make 25 years that The Rock won the Rumble in 2000 at the Garden.
Yep.
Right. Is there any fear that you might have that is a possibility that, one, The Rock could be in the Rumble, and then two, win it 25 years later?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's not something in the front of my mind, because I can't think that they're that fucking dumb. I just can't, because like there's no reason to have Rock win the Rumble. I mean, they already set up Cody and Rock a year ago. Rock could show up tomorrow and say, "Hey, Cody, I want a piece of," like, I'm cashing my chips in here. What chips that is, I don't know. I mean, I guess he's an executive in storyline, real life,
That's
whatever.
Right.
You don't need to have him win the Rumble and take an opportunity away from someone else where you could have someone else win the Rumble. Because again, if we are getting Cody and Rock at Mania, which I still think we are, which I don't even really want a triple threat, we could take a break from Cody and Roman for a little while against each other. Rock can get that title match. He's not going to win the Elimination Chamber. Like, he could just show up and get the match. Whoever wins the Rumble instead can then face the other champion on the other show. That is how you set it up. I don't think Rock needs to win the Rumble. I mean, I can't even imagine. I could see him working the Rumble and getting hurt. I know he worked like a 45-minute tag team match last year at Mania or earlier this year, and he looked very good, but I don't know. He would need to start training now for a Rumble appearance. I guess it could be a quick thing where he shows up, tosses someone out, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's necessary. The thing is, it does worry me, though. It's not like, oh, that's so like, it's not gonna, it's so implausible that it's not going to happen. It is pretty plausible because as we sit here right now, November 22nd, what are these top choices for the men's Rumble this year? Aside from like even a John Cena is possible. And I don't even really think that's necessary either. There's not a lot of like, oh, I think this person should definitely win it.
Aside from Punk, that's the only one I had months ago. Punk, and I think John could win it because that's what's going on with the story.
Yeah, and these are all like 45-year-old people, 50-year-old people. Like, what about like active performers? Like there's not a whole lot of people that jump out to me. Even like if we get Cody and Orton at Mania, which again I don't think we are. Orton does not need to win the Rumble for a third time. So I don't know. Yeah, there is a worry Rock could win it. I don't think he should. I think that'd be silly. It'd be a waste. Doesn't mean they won't do it, though, to tell that story that he abused his power. Oh, gets more heat on The Rock. Well, I guess so, but it also just completely wastes the Rumble win again.
What's up, Jay? You want The Rock to win the Rumble?
Hell no. Hell no. Hell no. Hell no. Like, there's no Graham said it eloquently. There's no reason for him. They don't need to use the Rumble gimmick to make it plausible for him to be in some type of main event. He's The Rock. He damn near used his power to get into the main event last year.
Exactly. What would be different?
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
What's the same? What's the difference between that and this year? He doesn't need to win the Rumble, and I don't think they're at a dearth of talent where you need something over the top like The Rock abusing his power, because those type of storylines can mask a lack of depth that you have in your roster. And plus, if it's like, hey, this is the biggest money match we have, I get it. I understand. But I do think there's enough people that you can make the case need the Rumble win more than The Rock. That's where I come from with it. I mean, they're really just putting on this Rumble match for the sake of tradition, that the winner gets a shot at Mania. So you just decide which belt needs a winner from the Rumble to contend for the title.
Yep. And I think that's the World Heavyweight Championship.
Right. I mean, hell, they're not going to do it, but we remember when Charlotte won and took on Rhea Ripley during pandemic year, right?
Yeah.
So there is a precedent to not use that briefcase on one of the two major titles. I don't even think you need to go to that outside the box thinking this year. Probably the World Heavyweight title should have the Royal Rumble winner, because Cody, you can make the match with Cody or whoever holds the WWE title. You can make that match however you want to make it. So if that's the case, depending on who's holding the World Heavyweight title by the Rumble, I can make the case for a few people.
And if it's Gunther still, then you can have Punk. You can have a Braun Breaker, maybe. I know Gunther's always wanted Brock Lesnar. Does Brock get in there and do that? I know Grant don't want that, but it's like
that would be awful. It was awful when he won it 3 years ago. It would be awful if Brock won it again.
Yeah, he doesn't need it.
No, he doesn't need it either.
That would be terrible. If Brock came back, listen, Brock coming back at all at this point is going to get a lot of people upset for, documented reasons. It would be even worse to have him come back and take a top spot and go after a world. Listen, I want Brock and Gunther too, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the Royal Rumble. That would be awful. We don't even know if Gunther is going to be champion. And another thing to consider too is that I know if you win the Rumble, you can go to any brand to challenge for whatever title or whatever, the world titles. But there's a chance with this Netflix talk, if they want Cody on Raw, Gunther's probably going to SmackDown. So if he goes to SmackDown, that opens up a whole other litany of challengers from like LA Knight. Do I think LA Knight drops the U.S. title and wins the Rumble? Probably not, but anything can change in 2-3 months. Who else is on SmackDown? I mean, we've already seen Orton and Gunther. Owens, I don't think so. But again, that could create other options as well if they want to go that route. So I don't know. I would hope Roman doesn't win it. I don't really want to see Cena win it. I don't want to see Rock win it. Punk is the only one of those choices that would make sense. But even then, you would have to get the belt on Rollins from Gunther before then. Punk would win the Rumble. I don't think Rollins and Punk at this point needs the World Heavyweight Championship. A lot of things to kind of figure out in the coming months.
Right. Before I go into the talk of Survivor Series moments and matches. So Jeff, right now we got 2 War Games. At War Games, we got the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther and Priest. What do you make of that match and also the Women's War Games match?
I like Gunther and Priest only because it's the first time we've really seen Gunther vulnerable as a competitor. He's been a complete force of nature since NXT UK. Mm-hmm. You only saw shades of his armor being depleted when he lost, the few times that he lost. But this is the first time where another competitor has the physical advantage over him, where he can't just jump somebody in the back and that be it. Priest was able to bring the equalizing pipe and smash him in the stomach with it and smash him with the metal pipe and talk his shit. We haven't seen Gunther in that position before. And it seems like he wants to be there as a measure of his ring is sacred axiom, right? Where he does not feel he needs a numbers advantage to defeat Priest. He's going to show him and remind him who he is. But maybe he does, because Priest is as tall as him, if not taller, maybe not as big, but as imposing, as strong. And he has that mentality where he literally came off the street to be a world champion and put in work. So you have that real world element of grit and toughness and the inventiveness to do whatever it is you have to do to win. Gunther hasn't seen somebody like that. Maybe he would have got a version of that if him and NXT Finn would have finally got it on. That's something that I hope down the future they're able to really do again. Or even Dragunov is just sheer force. That's just a tornado and a hurricane colliding one-on-one, right? But I do think that is an interesting matchup because, Damian gets his opportunity to go back for the world title again. And now it's establishing him as a true main eventer. It wasn't a one-off. He is firmly implanted in that world title scene. And I love the Women's War Games match. I love how they intertwined it throughout the months with all the individual conflicts and then the side relationships, the interpersonal relationships between the different wrestlers and how they all coalesced as War Games, where, the Liv and Nia side is really just more so a business arrangement.
Yeah.
But they know we have to take them down. And then you have the big 3 and EO, right? There's storylines within them with the Damage Control versus Bianca Belair. Can Bayley be trusted? Is Bianca feeling like it's fool me twice time with Bayley and they're keeping her at arm's length? Are they going to expand it? I think you get a lot of great workers in this match too. So I'm interested for the match to go down.
G?
Yeah, I mean, the match itself, I think, should be really, really good. There's a lot of history with the women in there. I maintain what I said previously. I just don't think just because it's War Games, we got to have 2 War Games. We have one for the men. We need one for the women. That idea is just silly to me. Hopefully they kind of move away from that in future years. But Rhea being back does help. I think it is interesting that is Bailey's on the team, right? You mentioned Bailey. So it's Jade.
Oh,
no.
Rhea's the 5th. I apologize, but I'm just saying, just in terms of the way they kind of kept her at arm's length because of the EO connection. Because she's like, I don't know if you could trust EO, and they're like, well, who was with EO when they were terrorizing the WWE, Bailey, right? So, but having Rhea as the 5th member is like clutch, is really clutch.
And not only that, too, like, honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the EO connection before you mentioned it a few minutes ago. But like even Bailey and Bianca as well. I mean, the history there, and Bianca has yet to kind of get over that. They have yet to kind of bury the hatchet, and she doesn't want a team with her having anything to do with her. So it is interesting. Bailey's not in there. Naomi is. I know she's been more with Nia lately, but Bailey's been kind of interesting. She got involved in that SmackDown main event last week. So they're making it interesting. I'm kind of more so curious what we get coming out of it. Rhea and Liv is kind of at a point now. Okay, we got to wrap this up. It's almost it's encouraging that Rhea's back because Raw could use her right now, but not only for that reason, but also because the worry was if Rhea's, if Rhea's her, then she's going to return to the Rumble and face Liv at Mania. Absolutely not. That is way too far away. We cannot be waiting another 5 months to blow off that feud. They got to get it over with on the sooner side. And I think they can hopefully do that with War Games, have Rhea's team win, and then maybe do the rematch at Saturday night's main event. And then we can move on to other challengers. Becky should be back soon too. So that's another thing to keep an eye out for. So in addition to hopefully building up, new women as well, that should be obviously the goal. But I'm trying to look at the positives here as to why this match is happening.
Speaking of main event, before we go into the next topic, Jay, we had the Women's United States Championship tournament culminating at main event next month. Who do you think is gonna come out? I think Bailey's in it, Jay's in it, Bianca's in it, Tiffany's in it, Naomi's in it, a few other people. Like, who should be the first Women's United States champion?
Whew. I mean, well, first off, they have an extensive and awesome crop of people to choose from. That's first off. They have an embarrassment of riches of people who they can have be this first Women's United States champion and take it to the forefront. I'm kind of the mindset that you go with a known commodity. You go with a known name as somebody who can elevate and carry a feud that can get people interested. So once again, in that regard, save a couple of people just because of their newness. I feel like you can really go either way. I think my top two would probably be either Bailey or Naomi. Those would be my top. Those would be my top two, only because they're both veterans. They both have a connection with the crowd. They both can wrestle, and they both can be in feuds where it elevates this title. And if your first title holder is somebody who has been a former champion, that brings more prestige. This is the wrestler making the belt, not the belt making the wrestler. Because now with a new belt, the wrestlers have to make the belt. They have to bring the prestige and the respect to the belt, right? So that people know, like, okay, if you're competing for this title, it means something. It actually means something. And also another ingredient to the women's US title recipe to me would be someone who could wrestle on TV well, like can have banger TV matches. And in that, because I could see this title getting defended on PLEs. I can also see this holding down those SmackDowns before the PLEs when they make those more of a major event or a Saturday night's main event, almost like a TV title, almost like how the TV title used to operate. And in that sense, I do think Bailey and Naomi are two that can really take this to a great level for whoever beats them to carry it on.
So, G, if you don't know, we have Bailey, LeRae, B-Fab, Bianca, Chelsea Green, Blair Davenport, Jade Cargill, Meechin, Piper Niven, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and Elektra Lopez. Who you got, Graham?
No, I agree completely with Jeff. I think Bailey or Naomi would be good first picks, because I was thinking more along the lines of like when this was first theorized by fans, like, oh, women's mid-card belt, who would benefit the most? Like the first two names that came to mind from the SmackDown side specifically, and just in general, were Chelsea Green, who's made the most of all the mid-card storylines that she's been a part of. She's gotten over. She's been really good. And Meechin, who doesn't really have like a direction because she's probably not going to win the main women's title. But then exactly what Jeff said is what someone else said to me like a couple of weeks ago that I feel like makes perfect sense. If you have them win the belt, and that would be great, they're going to be beaten at some point, obviously. I would rather be in a situation where I don't want to be in a situation where one of them wins the belt, and then let's say Charlotte comes back and then beats Chelsea Green for the belt or Meechin. That does neither of them any favors. I would rather be in a situation where Bailey makes history or Naomi makes history by making that belt. They get another accolade, and then one of those aforementioned women like a Candice or a Chelsea or a Meechin beats them for the championship, and then they benefit from beating Bailey. If it's the other way around, they probably will not really benefit, and their reign will be forgotten within 2 or 3 months. Right. So I'm in complete agreement with Jeff there on his point about that. And like he was saying, like Jeff was saying, I think there's an embarrassment of riches right now on the SmackDown side of things, even on Raw as well. Like we still don't know. They haven't really clarified. There's no Raw women in the tournament, but can it be defended against Raw women? Will it be a co-branded title? Are they getting their own IC title at some point? I would think so, but they haven't said that. So I don't really know. But for now, SmackDown has plenty of options to choose from. And that's not even including Nia, who's the current champion, or Tiffany's in the tournament, but I don't think she's winning because she's probably going to cash in on Nia or whatever else is going on there. So, and Charlotte's not in the tournament, and she's also not back yet, and she probably will be on SmackDown because that's where her husband is. So, a lot to be excited about on the SmackDown side of things with the women right now.
So, no chance that one of the tag team champions comes out as champion, then they start this little dissension.
Maybe I could. That honestly isn't a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Two things, though. One, that would make the tag titles even more of an afterthought because I don't think those get defended once one of them becomes champion. And two, I don't think whatever story they tell with those two needs a title initially. I think Jade and Bianca, to me, this isn't going to happen. But I think, to me, that match at Mania, and they should do that match at Mania. At this point, they've waited this fucking long. Just do it at Mania. They should have done it sooner, but it's fine. It should not be for a championship. I don't know when the last time we had a singles match at Mania with the women that was not for a belt. And I'm not talking the cat fight crap and stuff like that 20 years ago. I'm talking in the last 10, 15 years, that wasn't a tag team match, a 6-woman, a battle royal. They don't really, we get it with the men all the time. They don't really do non-title women's matches at Mania, like singles feud matches. Jade and Bianca can be that and have it be an attraction. I know they're going to probably want to throw the belt in there. Oh, we want to defend it at Mania.
Yeah.
I'm all for, you could do that in a separate match. WrestleMania is 2 nights. You can do whatever you want. I think Jade and Bianca should be focused fully on that, whatever that story is, and not a championship being at stake. You could use that belt for something else, in my opinion.
You agree, Jay?
I do 100%. I think they can go either way with it. I think it's how long do you want to build towards it? That's my question, because they're just waiting on Bianca Rhea. We don't know when. I know it's at Mania, but we don't know when. And the thing is, with the women's wrestlers, you have multiple clocks involved, not just age. You got biological if they want to start a family, or if they have, or they haven't yet, or whatever. You got to think about that. And I know, depending on, Rhea's married, Bianca's married. We don't know whether or not that's going to go down, when that's going to go down. So there's concentric windows opening and closing with them. So we don't know when that's going to happen. So to Graham's point, this may be a situation where you strike while the iron is hot, or you just build towards next year or the year after. I think either way, they're going to have to embarrassment of riches once again. So it's like a 2-year plan where you're building towards, okay, when do we pull the trigger on Bianca Rhea? When do we pull the trigger on Bianca Jade? Right? So I don't think a title is needed, but if it is going to be involved, it's not going to be a 2-3 month feud. You're going to see the slow disintegration of their friendship. Then they're going to start feuding, and then it's going to come to a head at one of the major events.
Right. Before I let you guys go, so plenty of years me and Graham have been on this show talking about Survivor Series moments and matches, and we kind of do it every year, just kind of keep it more modernized, because we do forget what we said last year and the year prior. But I want to get you on now because I want to get your background, your history when it comes to Survivor Series. Where does it? I know there's SummerSlam, there's WrestleManias, there's Royal Rumbles. But to be real, the Survivor Series has not had that kind of punch and that lineage that it once was back in the day. I think with these war games, they're trying to make that stride on the upward path. But before I get into your matches and moments for Survivor Series history, what is Survivor Series? Where do you rank it amongst your liking, and how do you prepare for Survivor Series every year?
Yeah, so when I was younger, it used to be my favorite pay-per-view because they used to invest so much in the 5-on-5 match where there was no world title match. Whoever was the champion had to lead a team against his main op and their team. So you got it felt like it felt like a crossover comic event every year for me, where all these different characters had to get together and they were fighting each other. So that was one of the reasons why I loved Survivor Series so much. But as they de-emphasized the 5-on-5 competition, it pretty much became another pay-per-view. War Games injected that feeling back into Survivor Series, I would say. Because I used to watch WCW too, and War Games was one of my favorite pay-per-views. I think the two that I liked from well, I'll say three. Halloween Havoc for sure, just because I'm a sucker for a holiday gimmick, right? I'm a sucker for a holiday gimmick. So Halloween Havoc for sure. Battle Bowl, the lethal lottery. That was one of the most innovative.
Wow.
Like when WCW was in their innovative bag, they came out with some great concepts to where you pulled out a random name, you pulled out random names, and if you guys match, you became a tag team. And it just blew my mind where it's like you could have a complete blood feud with somebody, but y'all have to team up and you have to win because then you get to that final tournament where you're wrestling for a title or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was really intriguing. And War Games, because it was their equivalent of Survivor. You know, it was their equivalent of Survivor Series. So I used to really like it. Now it probably is 505 for me. I remember when Money in the Bank first started and it became an official pay-per-view. I loved that match. I was a fan of Shawn and Razor when I saw that first ladder match. And then ever since then, when they made Money in the Bank its own pay-per-view, I was sold. But I think for me in this current moment, WrestleMania is its own event. Like it's in its own tier because it's WrestleMania, right? Like if you can look forward to it, it's WrestleMania. But out of everything else, Royal Rumble is probably one of my favorites because you never know who's going to show up. Facts. And I love that surprise, that anticipation of waiting for the next event. It's always been high up for me, but I love Royal Rumble. Money in the Bank for sure is something that's really good. So what do we have? Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam. Oh, I love SummerSlam because for like 8 straight years it was in New York.
It was in the Northeast.
You know that, Graham? It was like for 8 straight years it was in the Barclays or MetLife, so I didn't have to go nowhere. So that's why I really love Survivor Series, and then that meant that you were getting a takeover as well. Yeah. So we were spoiled like hell in this area for for SummerSlam. Yeah, I like SummerSlam was cool once again because it was in the summer, it was hot. You know, it's like you out of school, you don't have to, you're not working as hard or as intensive in those months. So that was always cool. So I feel like for me, my top tier is Royal Rumble, Mania, and Money in the Bank. But I love the fact that they brought War Games to Survivor Series, so we know at least we're.
May have lost Jeff for a sec. Oh,
at least it's not me this time. Look at that.
It is not.
Wow. Hold up. Just. Whoa, it's not me this time.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I got him. There we go.
Damn, I just said Survivor Series wasn't my favorite. Damn. I didn't know. Sorry if it offended, bro. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good. Yeah, I told you at least it's not me this time.
Right. So you see, the internet monster came for me too. The Wi-Fi monster clipped me. But so Rumble, Money in the Bank, and SummerSlam and Survivor Series are kind of my lesser ones. And then WrestleMania, of course, is WrestleMania. I do like that now the King of the Ring winners get a title shot at SummerSlam. I think that's really cool because now SummerSlam isn't like a transitional event to get to the road to WrestleMania, to get to the end of the year. Now it actually has a significance. And I think that's something great that they're doing with every one of their major events. There is a significance to it. Like there are stakes. There are stakes in every single one now.
Yeah. Before G chimes in, I want to circle back. You know, you said a lot, so I'm trying to like program everything. Halloween Havoc was one of my favorites in WCW. Fall Brawl. If I pick the top 3, Fall Brawl, Halloween Havoc, and I think like Starrcade was their WrestleMania, but I didn't feel that when it came to a Starrcade, like from a top to bottom card. I always fuck with what's that shit called? Spring Stampede always has some fire shit going on.
You were a Hog Wild guy. You was a hog. You was going to Sturgis.
No. That was Road Wild.
Road Wild. Yes.
Nah, I ain't fuck with the Sturgis.
Myrtle Beach.
No, I apologize. Bash at the Beach.
There you go.
Bash at the Beach, Halloween Havoc, and Fall
is.
Ball. Probably my
There
top
it
three.
is.
Come on, man. You agree, G? What you got? Real quick?
It ain't any of those because I didn't grow up on WCW. I'll tell you that much. But they are. I am glad. I will say on that front, I don't have that same nostalgia towards those shows, but I am glad the WWE, Shawn Michaels, whoever, is now reviving a lot of those concepts because they're great names, great themes. Like Halloween Havoc is such a great idea for a pay-per-view. And for the longest time, Vince was so stubborn to ever do anything with that IP. And they owned that IP since it closed. They may have lost and got it back, but that was 01 that the last, or 2000 was the last Halloween Havoc show. It was almost 20 years before they used it again in NXT. Now it's an annual event. They've used it as a PLE. Would be cool if we got to the main roster, but, you know, it is what it is. But a lot of great WCW names that they're now using in NXT and old WWE pay-per-views like No Mercy and stuff like that. All for the nostalgia stuff. I think that's great.
In Your House.
Yeah, they used that again during COVID, and I thought that was really cool. I think just as far as favorite pay-per-views, I mean, I'm kind of echoing the same answers as you guys, but you know, Survivor Series isn't towards the top of the list. It's kind of the basic answers. Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam have always been my top three. You know, Rumble for obvious reasons. SummerSlam because it was in Brooklyn for so long, like Jeff said. I mean, it was just easily accessible, and it was so easy to go to for a while there. And that was the first PLE pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, that I ever attended as a fan. Was I think that SummerSlam 2015 show. So those three. Money in the Bank is always a vibe. I would probably put that over Survivor Series at this point. But yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the pay-per-views now feel special. You know, they've done a great job. Backlash has got that great underrated vibe about it in the last 2 years between Puerto Rico and France. It was just an amazing atmosphere. So Survivor Series isn't really close to the top of the list, but it's a great Thanksgiving weekend tradition, and they've done a good job of restoring some importance and excitement to the show in recent years with War Games and everything else they've done, which has been cool to see.
Hey, Jay, G may not say it publicly, but he told me off the air that when he picks his top 5 shows, Crown Jewel is top 5 for him.
I'm sure.
He loves Saudi. He loves
the Saudi show. Sure, of course.
That's hilarious.
I got to go to one of these days.
So Jay, there's been obviously 35 plus years of Survivor Series and matches and singles matches and moments. If you had to pick, like, you know, I keep it to 5. I want to do 5 moments that stuck out to you at Survivor Series, and like 5 matches that stuck out to you, whether it be singles, traditional tag team matches. When it comes to Survivor Series, what are your favorite 5 matches and your most notable 5 moments?
So you asking me to tap back into like a whole lot of memory, man. Like I could give you a couple.
The best you can.
Yeah, I could give you a couple. Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series. That was
you know what? Not
because,
to cut you off. That celebrated 34 years today. Taker debuted today.
So I always remember that because I was like, who is this zombie about to wrestle in this match? But I remember that. Funny memory was, I think it was it DX and CM Punk that went 5-0 in the Survivor Series match?
And the Hardys.
Yes. I was just like, yo, this is OD. This is OD. Because if I'm in the creative meeting, I'm like, damn, we can't even get one elimination. We can't eliminate Matt. Like, we can't eliminate Matt or Jeff. Like, that's crazy. So I definitely remember that. Let me see. I pulled up something real quick just to refresh my memory. Oh, yeah. Bob Backlund, Bret Hart. That submissions match.
Oh, 94.
Yeah, I think this is when Bob Backlund won the title with the chicken wing. when they were like, he dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah.
Bob Backlund's going crazy. This was
That's
Bob
when
Backlund was like,
right?
Yeah, that's why Bob Backlund was going crazy. And this was like, I'm looking at a list, and that was like an honorable mention. And I'm like, man, that was like one of the best. So like those are two, like just getting like refreshed. My mind. Oh, of course. I know Graham is probably gonna say this one because I know Graham is more tapped in mentally, but Austin Brett was at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
That was a Survivor Series match. Then that would be my number one moment for me. I apologize. I didn't have that like top of mind, but you know. Can you hear me?
I got you.
Yeah.
We're following. We're following. Okay, so we got
I couldn't
Austin
hear
Brett.
y'all. My bad.
We got.
Oh no, you're good.
We got Austin Brett. We got Bob Backlund Brett. We got the CM Punk Hardys. And DX. Just to go off of that, they went 5-0. They took down a rated RKO, Gregory Helms, Johnny Nitro, and Mike Knox.
No wonder it was a clean sweep.
But rated RKO can get one elimination.
Was Gregory Helms the Hurricane?
No, I think it was Gregory Helms. Yeah,
that's why they went 5-0. If he was the Hurricane, he went as his alter ego. If he was the Hurricane, they might have got one.
Maybe, yeah.
Real quick, news said Howard Finkel announcing CM Punk at Survivor Series 2011.
Yeah, MSG.
Wow,
great moment. That was a good show. That was a good show at MSG.
At that show,
what'd you say?
The Rock came back at that show.
He did. They faced Awesome Truth in the main event of that pay-per-view. Him and Cena.
Survivor Series. Obviously, a Montreal Screwjob has to be at the top. That's got to be number
series.
one. Survivor Series. The Rock debuted. Taker debuted.
Kurt Angle debuted.
The Rock turned heel with the corporation in the Deadly Game tournament.
Yeah, of course, that entire show, really, but especially
that's, to me, that's probably the best Survivor Series show, I think.
So it's a good show. I would disagree. So not only my favorite Survivor Series show, one of my favorite pay-per-views, period. And I wasn't even like a fan during this point, during this time. Survivor Series 02. That to me is like the GOAT Survivor Series show.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have a friggin', I mean, honestly, the two things that show and the 02 show that I'm talking about have in common is that there were no elimination tag matches on that show. I know we haven't gotten them in recent years, but like back then it was unheard of for Survivor Series to not have elimination tag team matches. 98, 02 didn't have them, but 02 had the first ever Elimination Chamber. Dudley Boys reuniting, really good Trish and Victoria match, I want to say, for the Women's Championship. Brock and Big Show, where Paul turned on Brock, big moment there as well.
Yeah.
Triple threat. I know that show like the back of my hand. It's an MSG, amazing show. Shawn wins the world title for the first time in like 5 years. Great fucking show.
Shawn Michael, right? With the jeans? With the jeans on?
No, with the brown joints, the cowboy boots.
Oh,
yeah, then that SummerSlam
came back.
Yeah. Then he had the fucking assless chaps in that match or whatever it was. A weird ass haircut that either he had or Triple H had. No, Triple H had the biker shorts on. That was a weird time, but that was a great show.
The Shield debut at Survivor Series.
Amazing moments in the last 15 years just because of circumstances where they didn't really treat the show as important. But if you want to go off of recent stuff, I mean, the Shield debut, Punk's return last year, obviously, probably number one for me at this point. The return of War Games, even some of the brand supremacy stuff sucked for the most part, but we did get some great matches out of it. Brock and Bryan was amazing. Brock and AJ was really, really good as well. The Goldberg return doesn't really stand out to me as like my favorite, but him beating Brock in 90 seconds a few years ago was wild. Another crazy one. So, and also one of my favorite moments at Survivor Series that I still rewatch years later, 10-year anniversary tomorrow, Sting's debut. And that whole Team Authority, Team Cena stuff at 2014 was an amazing Survivor Series ending. That Sting return.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Incredible. So that's another one as well. Yeah.
Trying to think there's a few that popped up. Oh man. I mean, you had Taker beat Hogan for the title at Survivor Series. Remember that
He
one?
did. Yeah, and then they switched it back 2 days later, right? At Taboo Tuesday.
That's right, because Hogan said, "Oh, you Taker fucked up my neck," which he was lying. He lying.
Stupid.
The fucking liar, bro. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I think that's pretty much like the top ones that kind of stick out as far as matches. I think one where they had the Alliance,
Team
against The Rock,
WWF.
Taker, Kane,
Yeah.
Jericho, and Big Show. People still tell me that's the greatest Survivor Series team ever put.
Yeah,
For
I
a
could see that.
5-on-5. Could be debatable
that.
to some, but you know,
Team
is that
wise,
really
it's
the
probably up
Survivor
there.
Series?
That was Survivor Series, yeah. Team Alliance and Team WWF, yeah.
Now, I'm
That
trying
was
to
the
think
blow
what
off
else.
to the whole Alliance angle. Was that show? That was a good show too.
Jeff, if Triple H said, "Yo, you got a one-night contract, but you got to compete in a chamber or War Games, which one you doing?"
Man, wow. I feel like the War Games cage has more give than Elimination Chamber.
Elimination
Because,
Chamber, that
boy.
steel grate or whatever is awful. And I know they made
Yeah.
it better, but that's still like people do not want to wrestle in that match. War Games is
Yeah.
just a steel cage match. Like you can get thrown into a cage and it would hurt, but not as bad as landing on your back on the steel grate. So totally War Games.
Man, and then it's in a confined area. I saw Triple H almost crush his trachea from a Rob Van Dam knee off the 5-star
At Survivor Series, yeah.
Yep. I don't want any parts of the Elimination Chamber. Give me War Games all day. Wow. I fear that Elimination Chamber cage more than I fear whatever's under the ring.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So OG Chamber or OG Hell in a Cell? You still going OG Hell in a Cell?
Yeah, hell yeah. Because the OG Hell in a Cell is just the War Games cage.
Yeah, just with a top.
I mean, divided by 2-1.
Yep.
It's just half of the War Games cage. It's the same cage. When it's not red,
yeah,
it's the same cage.
Yep.
I mean, the OG War Games cage was like a fence. It was just fencing,
yep.
right? So, hey man, listen, I take that over that Elimination Chamber steel. Like that steel was meant to contain metahumans, not wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the modern chamber. It looks, I don't know, just I'm old school like that. I get you want to be protected. The OG chamber was fucking crazy, but I get just the look of it like, yo, time out. This is I don't want to get in this, and I don't care if I win or lose. I'm trying to get out. But the way they modernized it into little pods and this and the lighting, and I'm like, you're doing too much, man. Give me the old school shit from 02. You know,
I agree.
What else we got, G, that I pretty much covered? I know next week we're going to be off Thanksgiving holiday, so anything else I'm missing right now?
I think that's pretty much everything. It was kind of a quiet week, but yeah, we covered Survivor Series pretty well, I would say.
Are you going to main event, Jeff, in Long Island, or no?
It depends on a variety of factors. So that's also the weekend of the in-season tournament. So if I'm not covering anything out in Vegas and I'm here,
that's right.
you know, and I'm free, I might stop by the Nassau Coliseum, Veterans Memorial Coliseum and see what's shaking.
What about the MSG show, 26th December?
I'll probably be out of town. So that's a no-go.
You sound like Graham. I was busy, out of town. I got this going on.
It's the holidays.
It's the holidays. That one is usually tough because I'm not in town for Christmas. So
last thing that they started promoting Netflix Raw January 6th. They got Cody, Roman, CM Punk, and I guess from seeing the Tyson fight with all the stoppages, I think they got some work to do to make sure when you're watching Raw live on Netflix that they don't run into the same problem. So are you excited about that, G?
I'm hoping so. Listen, when that fight was happening last week and people were freaking out, oh, I mean, this Raw's going to be fucked. Like, dude, 60 million people are not going to be watching Monday Night Raw on Netflix. They don't even get that amount of viewers in a single year for all of their shows combined, let alone for one show. It'll be fine. They will not have any issues, I don't think. They could. Honestly, my bigger concern is not the live streaming aspect. I'm usually someone that will watch stuff on not even live sometimes, but I'll catch up like through. I just don't like the commercial bullshit, and I know Raw's still going to have that nonsense. Can I rewind it while I'm watching it? Netflix is new to this live streaming game, so I don't know how this is going to work exactly. It's kind of like Peacock is the same issue where you can't really rewind it. It's a fucking mess. So, yeah, I think the Netflix stuff will be fine. I'm not really too concerned about it.
Hey man, just for you, when Goldberg has a match on Netflix, it's gonna be 50 million to watch Goldberg watches.
I'm sure. I'm sure Goldberg and Braun. Yeah, I'm sure.
Jeff, anything else that you feel we're missing?
Nah, I think like Graham said, it was pretty slow, and I think we got the major beats out of the way.
Yeah. You can follow Graham Matthews on Twitter at Russell Rants. Follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff J Says. Myself, Randy J Cruz, RENDY, letter J CRUZ. Find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music. Go to youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show some love and support for you boys on the program. For myself, Jeff Johnson, Graham Matthews, enjoy Survivor Series next week. I know I'll tap in with you guys sometime next week.
Sounds good. Enjoy Thanksgiving.
Enjoy.